A system services company was the leader in their industry. They had heard about a small new company starting up in the space, but decided the company was too small and niche to threaten business. They did not empower the sales team with intelligence to sell against this new competitor, since they were not hearing anything about this new competitor in the news. During the next financial review, they realized they had lost market share. When they looked into it, they discovered that the new competitor they had not been paying attention to had been quietly taking customers. It turned out that the new player, along with their features and capabilities, were being mentioned frequently during support ticket handling. If they had ThunderAct, they would have been alerted to the increased interest in these new features and could have been proactive in keeping loyal customers. To learn more about ThunderAct's incredible AI-powered data analysis and business advisory capabilities, visit ThunderAct.com to start a free trial.
Awesome. All right, we are back. And next up, we've got a really great presentation from Oren, all about data. Oren, whenever you're ready.
So thanks, Noe, for inviting me. Real pleasure to be here. And a little bit about myself. I'm Oren Ariel. I used to be the formerly CTO of Mercury Interactive. And I spent also a couple of years after the acquisition at HP running research. And most recently, I was the CTO and founder of Capriza. And in the last few months, I'm engaged advising several startup companies and actually actively engaged in a few machine learning driven products. So happy to talk about some of my experiences and also some of the scars that I have on my back. And initially when I was assigned to this topic, I thought, wow, it would be great great opportunity to talk about some of the advancement in this field. We will talk about this, but kind of reflecting back to some of the projects that I'm engaged in, there is still some fundamental gaps and a lot of surprises that I encountered in terms of how to apply machine learning to real life problems. So I wanted to share this with you, some of the key aspects. And so the headline is going to remain the same, but hopefully I'm going to give you some insight how to cross this sea of possibilities and come out at the other end with some insight on your data. Okay. So again, it's easier said than done. The simplest way to describe any machine learning project, it's that it's a program that given pieces of data that it hasn't seen before, it will process it based on previous experience and will tell you something you did not already know about your data. The problem is that getting from one end to another is not what you might expect. So let's highlight some of the areas that I think, and I'm sure that you can expect surprises. And some of you are already engaged in machine learning will already, this will resonate with you. So the reality is simple. Your machine learning project or product is only as powerful as the data that you bring in and how well you prepare it. And this is true for any type of ML project and NLP in particular. So you will find yourself spending a significant chunk of your time, typically 70%, just preparing the data to be consumed by ML. And so if we look at the steps that it takes you to prepare the data, you have to first start with what kind of data do I need and validate it and decide whether it's useful and correctly represents the problem that you're trying to solve. So there's a discovery phase and an analysis phase that really takes you back to the data origin and you have to decide on what type of data you need to bring in. Now, once you fixate on that, you need to format the data and into a format which is consumable by machine learning. So given most likely the data comes from different sources, many times you need to normalize it. You'll have a lot of missing data, and so you'll need to decide how to fill in those blanks with what values in order not to break the model that you will choose. So, and also depending on your problem, so for example, if you're computing for day of the week type of a solution, versus a once a quarter, you'll need to arrange the data differently in order to compute it properly, to make it fit into the problem space. And then finally, you'll need to decide on a modeling approach, on the algorithm that you're going to use to drive your model. And it's a highly iterative process on the data that you bring in. So at this point, you'll need to split the data into two parts. You need a training set and evaluation set in order to test that your model actually works properly. And this is done usually in many iterations and requires different versions of the data. So you end up with almost, if you look at all these steps, you end up with a project, something that's equivalent to a software development project. And but fortunately, there's a lot of tools that come into play that help you kind of cross top to bottom more efficiently. One are readily available data sets. So there are a lot of data sets out there that you can start with, including, for example, anonymized emails. It's actually the Enron archive, so you can work with that to time series of various different shapes and forms, and these are provided by vendors like AWS and Google and many others. The other tools allow you to manage the versioning of the data as it goes along the training cycles. So data versioning control tools have come into play in order to help you manage the configurations of the different data. So, but again, the important thing is really to treat it like a project, to expect it to be a project, and to expect it to be a significant investment. Okay, so just take an example from some of my recent engagements. So I'm working on a venture called SoundSpot. And what SoundSpot does is it automatically converts written industry content, such as take blog posts, newsletters, press releases, all the stuff that folks are, it's boring to read, but it's much better to listen to while you're working out or commuting or what have you. So when we approached this problem, we thought, hey, take written text and convert it to spoken text. It's a no-brainer. Well, it turned out to be a very, very challenging problem because written text contains a lot of redundancies. Punctuation doesn't fit very well. So we actually spent a significant amount of time on pre-processing the text. So when you feed it to a speech synthesizer, the results will sound natural, engaging, and flowing. So we had to deal with issues like removing legal disclaimers, which are not interesting for the listeners to hear. Handling industry acronyms, so the way they're written is not necessarily the way they're pronounced. And even simple things like handling bullets, paragraphs, and headers. So again, we spend north of 50% easily on just pre-processing the text and making it available before we feed it into the text-to-speech engine. Okay. The second area, so once you've crossed, once your model is operational and produces results, then you'll quickly discover that AI applications have a completely different economics than traditional software applications. And so one respect is the human in the loop. In order to achieve higher level of accuracy in your model, there's so much machines can do today. And that this is especially true for applications that require greater cognitive reasoning, like images and NLP. And so humans are often plugged into the AI system in real time in order to improve the quality and the accuracy. And one notable example is from the automotive industry, where in order for the vehicles to properly recognize road signs, you need to put humans to tag images of road signs at different angles, different lighting conditions, different countries, in order to teach the machine what that road sign looks like. But it's very typical to a lot of different AI applications that you need a certain level of human intervention. And the second thing that you'll discover is that many AI applications have open-ended interfaces, and they operate on noisy and unstructured data, like images or natural languages. So users will often lack the intuition around the product, or even worse, they'll assume that it has some sort of a superhuman capabilities. It can answer any question. So they will often start to, they will begin to use it in completely unexpected ways. And this means that edge cases are everywhere. As much as 40 or 50% of the intended functionality for AI products can reside on the long tail of user intent. And this leads to also to an unexpected services component in your product, because now you have to maintain almost a model per use case reality. And finally, on the operational side, it's tempting to think of training as sort of a one-time effort, but actually it's not. You have to continue to retrain your model, because the AI models tend to change over time, something which is referred to as a data drift. The data changes, and so the model changes with it. So, recent research that was conducted by Andreessen Horowitz across their AI companies, they reported that they typically spend significantly more, around 25% or more, on cloud operations than on SaaS, compared to SaaS companies. Okay, so all these are part of the reality that you'll, or some of the new realities that you'll need to face with AI. The human intervention part, the additional cost of operations, and the fact that you will have a lot of private cases to deal with. And finally, the last topic that I want to talk about is the users, right? So the users are the same users. They will continue to challenge you to deliver them information which which recommends hard actions that they can derive hard actions from, and they'll continue to do so, expecting minimal effort on their part. And in this respect, I want to give a couple of examples. Again, projects that I'm involved in. One is related to the energy industry, and everything I'm describing here is also true for other industries like oil and gas, where the workforce and also the equipment, which has been around for several decades, the workforce is mostly baby boomers, and they are retiring. So it's estimated that over the course of the next 3 to 5 years, about 50% of them will retire. So this leaves a huge knowledge hole, with that knowledge kind of going away. And the energy companies are rethinking their knowledge management strategies. So how are we going to capture all this information digitally, including the tribal knowledge? How are we going to index it? And how are we going to make it available to these new technicians that are replacing the ones that are leaving for retirement? But kind of the dissonance is that on the other side, there is a field worker that needs to leverage this data in a very, very challenging environment. So they might be in a noisy place, limited, dust, visibility. They might be 30 feet up in the air on a pole like this technician with a special device that allows them to tap into the data. And they expect, not only they expect, they need this information to be delivered to them in a very, very simplistic and actionable way. So one of the companies I'm working with, called Tacit, we're building an NLP-based mobile solution that will attempt to bridge that gap, and using different devices ranging from smartphones, tablets, to special devices like the one in the picture called HMT. We'll be able to deliver this information and hopefully allow these new technicians that are moving into the field, that are less experienced, that know the equipment less than their predecessors, to be able to ramp up extremely quickly. And another example which I want to bring, which is obvious and was discussed by some of the previous talks, are salespeople. But again, it's experience. So I'm engaged with a SaaS company who's recently launched a new product into the market. And we've just like any other SaaS product, it has a self-serve. People can register for a free trial, and we started collecting a lot of data ranging from product usage data with tools like Mixpanel, Amplitude, and also support tickets, the emails exchange, information that's been in Salesforce about the sales process so far, meeting recordings, what have you. And we also put together tools that allow the salespeople to assist them in the sales process and the follow-up, so understand exactly what the user, where the user is going, what are the chances that the user will stick with us versus abandon, and so on. And we found out the salespeople really shied away from these tools. We asked them to look at analytics, at graphs, and they completely shied away from that. And the reason is that they really expect this information to be actionable and recommend a next action. So again, no matter how sophisticated the data and the new insights you're able to bring to your user, they'll still expect it to be highly actionable, almost to the point that it recommends to them a next step and how to go about executing it. Okay, so these were kind of sneak peeks into some of the areas that I found challenging going through machine learning projects, some of them involving NLP as well. And just to summarize, machine learning is it's a wonderful thing that can really deliver new insights, but it's also a significant investment in terms of time, in terms of some new tools that you have to bring into the mix, both from the data preparation standpoint as well as the operational aspect. Managing humans who can help you improve your quality, and also from a cost standpoint. And while it plays a very important role in creating new insights, your users are not going to give you a discount, and they will continue to demand simplicity, actionability, and essentially to be able to spoon feed them with instructions what to do next with this data. But again, once you cross the finish line, if you're able to leverage machine learning and kind of cross this sea and come out of the other side with new insights, this information can provide any business with a true unfair competitive advantage. So with that, I hope you find this information useful, and I'm going to turn it back to Noi. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Oren, for the great session. This was really fascinating, and thank you for the insights.